I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the murder trial for his alleged killer, Karen Reed. It's a case that continues to raise some puzzling questions that have not been answered. Here's the story. On a snowy January morning in 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was discovered unresponsive by his girlfriend in the front yard of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts. The storm had nearly buried his body, but questions about how he ended up there quickly ignited a firestorm. That girlfriend, Karen Reed, was charged with second-degree murder, accused of backing into him with her SUV during a night of drinking, and then driving away to leave him outside in the snow to die. But the case soon spiraled into a national sensation. Reed's defense insists she was framed, the victim of a cover-up orchestrated by those protecting their own. The first trial divided the community in Norfolk County and on social media. Now, in her high-stakes retrial, Karen Reed faces the same charges, but with even more public attention, which has led to even more questions about what happened the night John O'Keefe died. And there are some puzzling, lingering questions in all of this, and questions that, regardless of what you think the verdict should be or what you think the verdict will be, if there's a verdict, still requires some thought and debate about how it all makes sense. And we're going to talk about those tonight. I want to begin at the scene because when John O'Keefe was found, he was found by Karen Reed, who was in the car with Kerry Roberts and with Jennifer McCabe. Jennifer McCabe, Kerry Roberts in the front seat, Karen Reed in the back seat. Karen Reed is the one who sees John O'Keefe in the snow. Then the first responder shows up and there's a dash cam. And in parts of it, you can hear from the dash cam inside some of the chaos and hysteria outside in those first moments. Let's take a look. And this is all happening in the street just 30 or so feet from the front door of 34 Fairview. And it's on the side of the home that is closest to where the owners of the home were sleeping, the Alberts, in their bedroom, and where their dog Chloe may or may not have been. I've heard mixed reports about where the dog was. But all of this is happening on the side of the house, same side of the house, because it's a relatively long house, where the Alberts were sleeping upstairs. And the Alberts didn't turn on a light, didn't open the door. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation, and it's about the owners of the home, the Alberts. Why didn't the Alberts hear anything? Why didn't they hear any of the commotion outside that was happening 30 feet from the front door to the curb? Emergency vehicles showing up. Karen Reed is screaming. People desperately trying to save the life of John O'Keefe. Why didn't they hear anything? All right, to answer this, let's start with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, great to see you tonight. You know, hearing something from inside, from the outside, is something that we took a look at when we were both up in Massachusetts.
That's absolutely right, Vinny. We were lucky enough to find a home that had a similar floor plan and layout. It was just inversed as 34 Fairview, and the homeowner was so nice and so gracious to allow us inside to gain a little bit more perspective, but more specifically to see what we could hear from that second floor window. Now, I was inside with the homeowner. You were outside making noise. Here's what we heard.
Okay, I'm outside the house. Cody and the homeowner are inside. I'm going to make a series of noises from outside the home and see if they can hear it inside the home. I'll begin by honking the horn.
Did you hear anything?
I heard nothing.
I didn't hear anything either.
No. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you heard that?
I heard that.
What'd that sound like?
Car horn to me.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, the second noise I'm going to make is just revving the engine.
Did you hear anything just now?
No.
You didn't hear any sound at all?
No.
Gotcha. I think I might have heard a car rev or something.
The third noise I'm going to make is just screaming on the front lawn here. Ah! Ah!
To think that.
Did you hear anything just now? As we were standing here?
No, I see Vinny. That's about it.
Yeah. I think I might have heard some talking or a yell or some sort.
The final noise I'm going to make is just talking. Okay, so is everybody okay? Is everybody okay? What's going on here? What happened? Where are you? Can you hear me inside?
So what'd you hear that time?
That was definitely somebody talking outside.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not like quite a yell, but
Right.
just a regular old
regular
voice.
talking.
Mm-hmm. So Vinny, she heard 2 out of the 4 sounds you made. Now, of course, she and I were not asleep in the twilight hours of the morning as the Alberts claim they were, but this experiment still gave us a little bit more perspective as to what could have been heard from that bedroom that night.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Cody. Let's bring in our guests who are going to help us answer this question. Joining me, criminal defense attorney who's been following this case, Margaret McLean, and private investigator Lauren Vellucci. Great to have you both here. Margaret, why didn't the Alberts hear anything?
First of all, I love your experiments. You guys crack me up. But why didn't they hear anything? Remember, they were up until 2 in the morning. They had been drinking. I don't know, but I do know that the sirens were not on, and the neighbors also didn't hear anything. So remember that dash cam video that you had that they showed. It was very close to where Karen was screaming, and Cody and the homeowner, they were kind of waiting and sort of listening to see if they could hear you yelling outside, or the car horn and everything. So I think it's fair that they might not have heard anything if they were in a deep sleep.
Okay, Lauren, what are your thoughts here about why the Alberts didn't hear anything that morning?
Yeah, I hate to do it, but I just disagree with my co-panelist, who I love. But I have different views on this. So obviously they were sleeping according to them. However, we know that now there's been evidence that has come out that Jen McCabe actually made a phone call to them early in the morning, and it was answered because I believe it was like 22 seconds, something like that. So I don't buy the story. It doesn't add up. Also, I have friends that are cops. They're always on high alert and they don't leave their doors open. So the fact that their door was open and they said that they heard nothing, I don't buy that, but I could give them a little break. However, people with dogs know that when something is going on outside, you have blackout curtains, whatever, the dogs don't care about that. They have great hearing. And if there was something going on that property, that dog would have been barking and it wouldn't have stopped barking because the people didn't go away. So it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And I think that they heard.
Margaret, are you concerned? And it comes back to Chloe again. Chloe's going to loom large in the defense case, but the fact that the dog didn't alert, the dog didn't get fidgety, the dog wasn't moving around or waking up the owners.
Well, I do agree with that. That's bothered me from the first trial. I don't know. However, if you look at the totality of the circumstances, all of the physical evidence and circumstantial evidence that has come in this case, that whether the dog barked or not, and whether the Alberts, heard it, and, I don't think it really plays a big part in this case. It doesn't, remember, people get mixed up about what reasonable doubt really means. And in this case, is that enough to, throw reasonable doubt into this case so that the jury should come back with a not guilty? I don't think so. But, I do agree with my co-panelist here that, yeah, it's kind of weird that the dog didn't bark. I give in on that one.
Lauren, what are your thoughts about, I understand investigators, and they've made a big deal about this defense, the investigators didn't go into 34 Fairview, but Brian Albert, who's a police officer, didn't come out of 34 Fairview.
Yeah, he sure didn't. And that's the other thing. If you believe he was sleeping, if you believe he didn't hear it, okay. Well, at some point he knew what was going on out there and he never came out. That, again, I have friends that are police officers. That's not That's just not, it defies common sense. It's not something that's going to happen. And this was someone who he just hung out with. So if it for nothing else, he would have come out of the house to make sure that the man was okay, to see if there's anything he could do and to find out the status of his friend. I don't buy it. I think anyone with common sense would put themselves in his shoes and say, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he come out? He didn't come out because he knew exactly what was on that lawn and he knew what was going on, in my opinion.
Right, and that's what the defense is saying here. And Margaret, it's a fellow Boston police officer who's on the front lawn. Like, a Boston police officer owns the home. There's a fellow officer dead on his front lawn, never went outside.
I do agree. I think that's strange that he didn't go outside. Okay. Maybe he was worried because he knew there was a lot of drinking going on the night before. But overall, I don't think it proves that this big conspiracy existed, because if you look at the hard data, that cell phone never went inside the house. There's no evidence that John O'Keefe ever made it inside that house. And to think that all of those people are part of this big conspiracy, that really doesn't make sense for me.
All right, our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, did John and Karen drive up a hill?
I did test this a few months ago, driving in my vehicle, and the testing that I did consistently resulted in, I think it was 9 flights of stairs climbed while I was driving up the same hill.
A VPI special report.
The P. Diddy sex abuse scandal that has rocked Hollywood and the world of hip-hop.
The downfall of a music mogul.
Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years.
An all-new look at the evidence and the latest from inside the courtroom.
That was the moment when everything changed.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. A Diddy special report. Wednesday night, 9/8 Central on Court TV.
I believe it is more likely that the device was in a vehicle traveling on a road going up an incline versus the location data being incorrect and the person being walking up physical stairs.
This is another one of those that a lot of people are talking about. So Ian Whiffen, an important prosecution expert, taking a look at the cell phone data, right there is saying that the flight climbs that were registered on John O'Keefe's Apple Health on his phone, he believes is actually John O'Keefe in the car driving up a hill. Take a listen, because he did an experiment just like that to prove the point that you can drive in your car and your Apple Health will think you're walking up the stairs.
I did test this a few months ago, driving in my vehicle. I was able to, if I just put a phone on my dock as I'm driving around, nothing was recorded. But I found that if I was actually holding the phone while driving at the same time, then the natural suspension of the vehicle plus the movement of my arm would be considered enough to be steps. And if that motion happened while I was driving up a hill, it would also result in a flight climb event. And the testing that I did consistently resulted in, I think it was 9 flights of stairs climbed while I was driving up the same hill multiple times.
Okay, now the hill he was driving up, not even in the United States. He's only been in the United States twice. And it's not the neighborhood where John and Karen were. It's not the neighborhood of 34 Fairview. But all of this brings us to the next question in our investigation, because those flight climbs are on John O'Keefe's Apple Health data. Did John and Karen drive up a hill? It's important. If they drove up a hill, maybe that explains it. All right, try to answer this. Let's start with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. And once again, you and I in Massachusetts, in the neighborhood, checking and testing Apple Health data.
That's right again, Vinny. But the difference between our experiment and Whiffen's experiment is that we actually drove that neighborhood route that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe took that night. My phone was stationary in the cup holder. I was in the driver's seat. You were in the back seat with your phone in your hand. Here's our result. All right, so we're starting this drive down Oakdale Road now, following the map that was presented in court.
Yeah, we are following exactly what Ian Whiffen said, and we're very close to the area, he said, where the elevation begins, where we are. I'm driving right now and seems sort of flat. Could be a gradual increase.
Right. I don't see any hills. I mean, again, just because the hill isn't visible doesn't mean the hill is not there.
That's what we're basing this drive on. Ian Whiffin's expert testimony that the drive to 34 Fairview is where John O'Keefe recorded 3 flights on his Apple Health. We'll see if it works.
So now we're coming up to this stop sign. We're taking a right on Cedar Crest Road, and eventually we're going to get down here and past Fairview on the left. But according to Whiffin, she went past Fairview, went up there, made a 3-point turn, then circled back, and then turned a right onto Fairview.
Honestly, as I do the drive, I'll be absolutely shocked.
Right.
If it records 3 flights, because I don't feel like we've gone up, but maybe we have. So now we're going to do the turn.
A little turnaround right here.
And it'll take us to Fairview. And I think this little part of Fairview was what he referenced in his testimony, was another elevation.
So now we're on Fairview.
Fairview, so
34 Fairview's right here on our right.
All right, so we'll just go past that. We don't want to bother them today, but let's go past that, and we'll just find a place where we can pull over and we'll check our Apple Health data. Let's see if it recorded anything right now.
So let's go to show all health data, flights climbed. We'll show all data on the flights climbed. Today's date, May 14th. Mine recorded nothing.
Nothing.
Because this 11:02 is when we recorded it up the 16 steps earlier.
Right. Let me check mine. Let me go on my Apple Health and see if I recorded anything. I'll go back, show all data. Today's May 14th. May 14th, 8:42. No, that was only, I climbed the stairs this morning at 8:42. So.
No recording on either of our phones.
Right.
So yeah, Vinny, no recording on either of our phones, but that could be because there was not an evident hill on any part of that route that we were driving.
No, it looked and felt very flat. Very flat. Thanks so much, Cody. All right, let's bring back in our guest, criminal defense attorney, has been following this case, Margaret McLean, and private investigator Lauren Vellucci. All right, Lauren, did John and Karen drive up a hill?
Yeah, no, they didn't. And let's remember that we have John's health data and we also have Karen's health data, which showed no stairs climbed. There is not a hill on that street. I feel like it's disingenuous for the prosecutor to even put this forth and for Ian Whiffin to say that. I mean, come on. Anyone in the area knows there's no hill. I've had friends up there and they have tried what you and Cody did, not as smoothly as you guys did. You guys did great. But they actually waved their phone in the air and no stairs were registered, stepped, or climbed. So no, they didn't go up a hill.
Yeah, and I was holding it kind of like, if I'm looking and I would look at it kind of, you're following directions, because I think when they were driving, I think the Waze was on John O'Keefe's phone and he was kind of giving directions to Karen to how to get to this home. Margaret, did they drive up a hill?
I can't say whether they did or not, but I will say that Apple Health can be misleading. So
wait. So don't trust the data?
Well, I would say Apple Health in particular, I believe that after they found him, right? After he was, pronounced dead at the hospital, and I can double check this, but I believe Apple Health data had him taking steps at that point. But I guess the point is the location data doesn't show. Where would he be? So the 36 steps. So you're suggesting that he's inside the house taking 36 steps inside the house, but the location data never shows him inside the house. So I just don't trust. Yeah, I know.
Where does the flight climb come from, though? Because to me, that's the question. Yeah. If they're not driving up a hill, or where do you think it came from? Because it's there. They gave their explanation. The jury may or may not accept it. But what do we think the truth is on where the flight climbs came from?
I would say it came from going up the hill, even though it didn't register for you two. I do believe Ian Whiffin, but to me, in the scheme of things, whether he went up the hill and climbed a flight of stairs at that point in time, to me, that's not that important. To me, when I'm looking at that tech data, the data stream from the Lexus that was matched up to the phone, and you have the location data, which just does not show him in the house. That phone never entered the house. So to me, that 36 steps is neither here nor there. I'm sorry, the climbing the hill is neither here nor there, because I don't think that Apple Health data is that reliable for that.
Well, you know, and every timeline we're looking at right now is the prosecution timeline, right? The defense case hasn't gotten there yet. I'm wondering, Lauren, if there's going to be a drastic alternative timeline here put forth by the defense in this case. I think that might be a possibility, maybe not overall, but in the interpretation of some of the data. To me, that's what I'm waiting to hear, perhaps, from the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already saw a little bit of that even in the Commonwealth's case in chief. They just were allowed to change their timeline to make it not quite as big of a difference to what they're stating that the defense is going to show. So they've already kind of, put some Band-Aids on that and tried to change the timeline that is going to be showed by the defense. But I also have to push back a little bit on Margaret, because Ian Whiffin's report, there was that big circle, and that was in the house. It was towards the whole back of the house. So it is possible. And even Ian Whiffin couldn't say, right, yeah, you're showing it now. Even Ian Whiffin couldn't state that it was not possible that the phone was not in the house. So it clearly shows it in his circle.
Small circle, okay. Big circle. We're out of time for this segment, but don't go anywhere. Up next, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe's body? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. A case with many witnesses, but none who saw any of the most important moments from the night John O'Keefe died. This led to a hung jury first time around. Here's the story. The tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe shocked a community and ignited a true crime firestorm. On a freezing night in 2022, O'Keefe was out drinking with friends and his girlfriend, Karen Reed. By morning, he was found lifeless in the snow outside of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, his body battered and bruised. Karen Reed, a finance professor, soon became the center of a storm, accused of backing her SUV into him during a drunken argument and leaving him to die in the snow. But Karen Reed claims her innocence, alleging a cover-up involving law enforcement, hidden evidence, and a web of deceit. The first trial ended with a controversial hung jury, and now, as the retrial unfolds, the families, the lawyers, and the public hope that the truth finally comes out inside that courtroom in Dedham, Massachusetts. Eyewitness testimony is always important. You know, I often talk about how unreliable it is. If you have 10 people who see the same car accident, you're going to get 10 different versions of what actually happened. And you've got to piece together to figure out what really went down. Now, in this case, we have a lot of witnesses and a lot of, I guess, eyewitnesses to a certain extent in this case. A bunch of people who were at 34 Fairview, people at the waterfall, people who were pulling up to 34 Fairview to pick up people, drop people off, people walking from inside the house to outside the house. There were a lot of eyeballs that night in the area. But amazingly, in this case, none of them saw anything that goes to the heart of this case, that goes to the heart of what prosecutors are attempting to prove, including seeing the victim, John O'Keefe, dead on the front lawn. Because under the prosecution's timeline, he's dead on the front lawn or dying on the front lawn while there are still people inside who eventually leave 34 Fairview, walk outside and get in their cars and drive away. Take a listen to some of those witnesses.
You certainly did not see his body in the snow toward that flagpole. No.
And you saw no body in the snow, did you?
I didn't look for a body in the snow.
You could see all the way out to the flagpole?
Yes.
You didn't notice anything unusual at that time when you looked out toward the flagpole walking out of that front door?
I didn't notice anything. I wasn't looking out at the flagpole, but yes.
What, if anything, did you see on the front lawn in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
If there had been a 6'2", 200-pound man lying in the snow there, would you have seen it?
Objection.
Sustained.
And that last witness will be part of the defense case. That's Lucky. He's the snowplow driver. He drove by at specific times of the night, and he's looking because he doesn't want to, he's got to be careful that the snowplow doesn't hit anything. So he's got his eyes out there. He didn't see anything. All this brings me to the next question in our investigation. And this is an important one. You know, prosecutors want an eyewitness who can do this, but they don't have one. Why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe's body? Why not? Let's start once again with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. And Cody, when we were up there, I thought it was so important to drive by that home at night.
Absolutely, Vinny. As you and I typically do, we did another experiment, another field trip, as we sometimes call it. We rode by the home at night to kind of put in perspective of what could be seen from the driver's seat or passenger seat of a car at those hours. Take a look.
All right, so Cody and I are in the car. We're on Cedar Crest on our way to Fairview Road. It's at the next intersection, and we're just going to drive by at night and see what it looks like. Like, what do you see?
Yeah, so if you're on the right, you can see the fire, fire hydrant right here, the flagpole on the right.
Like, it is right there. We just passed the flagpole. That's it.
You can easily see. I mean, you know, there's snow that night, but that's still very close to the road.
Very close. So we're going to turn around and approach from the other side and see what we see. Now we're approaching from the other side.
So now it's going to be on the left.
It'll be on the left, but like if you're driving down not looking for it, the question is, would you notice it? Is it more noticeable? I thought the yard was really lit up coming down the right side, but coming down the left side, I feel like it's not as lit up.
Yeah, it's kind of unassuming.
So Vinny, in that video, of course, we rode by a little quickly, so we have it slowed down here for the viewers at home. You see right there, the flagpole on the right, the fire hydrant. You see that area of the grass is lit up by the headlights. So if you're rolling by again, there was snow that night. This is just given what we were seeing the night that we were there. But it's quite evident how close that area is to the road. And again, we took a still image here. We highlighted the flagpole just in case, because you know it's dark. You could possibly miss it if you aren't really looking for it. There's the flagpole. But in that general area between the flagpole, on the grass, near the fire hydrant, that's where O'Keefe's body was found. And you see it's lit up by the headlights of our car.
Absolutely. It was eye-opening, I guess, to a certain extent. Now, Cody, we also went to that replica house that we've talked about because there were people leaving the house that night. It wasn't just people driving, but people exiting from a couple of doors.
That's right, Vinny, and I actually put on those Meta Ray-Ban glasses that record video and give you a point of view of what essentially the person who's wearing those glasses would see. So I walked out of the front door of that replica house, and I'm sure we have the video. Here we are. You were on the ground lying there near where the flagpole would have been. So this is me walking out the front door with those glasses on, just kind of see what you would be seeing. Now, I just looked around. I didn't really, look heavily towards where the flagpole would be because, no one in the house had any idea, allegedly, that he was lying there. So they wouldn't be looking, right at it. So I walked out normally as I would if I was leaving a party, leaving a home, walking down the sidewalk here, turned up the driveway as if I was going to my imaginary car just to kind of see what you'd see. Now, of course, again, no snow on the ground. It's a very sunny day when we were there. But that's what you see coming out of the front door. Now, what I also did, you see, I got escape of the lane in front of me. I went out this side door. This was a little bit more farther down than the front door. So I walked out of there, and clearly, you were to the left. You have the drone footage there. You see where you were laying as if you were John O'Keefe's body. There's me walking down the sidewalk. You see the scape of laying there. Just trying again, see what someone would have naturally seen coming out of that house, a point of view of what you could have seen. So you see that, you see a large scape, you see across the street, you see across the yard, don't really see you on that recording.
Yeah, I think it's much more difficult. And obviously that house is an inverse of 34 Fairview,
right.
but it's the same idea. If you're going towards the driveway, you're not looking towards the flagpole. Thanks so much, Cody. Great work tonight. Let's bring back in our guest, criminal defense attorney who's been following this case, Margaret McLean, and private investigator Lauren Vellucci. All right, Margaret, why didn't anyone see John O'Keefe's body, either in the car or walking out of the house?
If you're walking out of the house, it's during a blizzard, a snowstorm, I'm looking down at my feet to make sure I don't slip and fall. Plus, that area was very dark in the corner near the flagpole. And then if you're driving by in a car, sort of the same thing. The driver's going to be looking ahead. Again, it's snowing. I don't know, like if it's snowing really hard, I'm not going to have my high beams on. I'm going to have my low beams on. And passengers, what are they usually doing? They're usually looking at their phone. They're not necessarily looking for a body, which is dressed. He was dressed in dark clothing, jeans, and sort of a darkish shirt on top. But it's, I just don't think they would have seen him at all. I think it's pretty dark in that far corner.
Now, Lauren Vellucci, the other part of this is not just didn't see him on the ground, no one saw him get out of the car. Like he was seen before they arrived by someone else in the car, that he was definitely in the car at some point, but no one saw him get out of the car, no one saw him behind the car, and no one saw him walk in the house either.
Right. One thing that I learned, because we had a blizzard here in Florida a couple months ago, and I thought of this case when my backyard was full of 10 inches of snow. It actually illuminates the area. So it can be pitch black, but that snow illuminates the area, and anything under, like the grass hose that's under there, a bush, it makes that more obvious, actually. So I was shocked about that. So I can understand why some of the people might not have seen a body, but people like Brian Higgins, who literally were parked and facing that, and when they turned their lights on, it would have been straight at it. If he was out there, he would have been seen. And then Lucky, the plow driver, who doesn't have any skin in this game, he would have most definitely saw him. He said, God forbid, he didn't want to hit an animal. He's looking out for things like that. So they didn't see him because he wasn't there. He was in the basement, the garage, I don't know, but he wasn't on that front yard.
Margaret, Lucky, the plow driver, to me is the most significant from my perspective, because he's driving those streets. He's got to have his eyes peeled. He can't hit a car, doesn't want to hit an animal. He drove by, I think, at least twice, didn't see John O'Keefe.
Well, you do realize that on the same night he hit a basketball hoop pole. Did you know that? He did. So, I mean, I think that kills his credibility right there. I mean, he wasn't looking and missed the big basketball pole. So, was he really looking for a body on the side of the road? No. And I'm sure he's a great guy and he's doing his best. But as far as a witness, I don't think his credibility is that great.
All right.
So here's the thing. He saw the basketball and he tipped it. But he also admitted that he saw the basketball. So it wasn't like he just
But then why did he tip it? No, my point is, he obviously still hit it with the plow.
He was not so lucky at that moment.
He's not so lucky, no.
We are.
And not at all. So
we are out of time for this segment. But thank you both so much, Margaret McLean, Lauren Vellucci. Great to have you on the program. We'll see you soon. Still to come, what is it like to be a judge when the world is watching?
Judge Cannoni, despite our commitment to the duty entrusted to us, we find ourselves deeply divided by fundamental differences in our opinions and state of mind.
Lauren Daybell, doomsday cult mom, convicted killer, and now defendant in yet another high-profile trial. Will this be the final chapter in the saga
of the doomsday cult mom?
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial, Monday morning on Court TV.
A social media star loses his wife and then loses control.
I couldn't believe that she could do that to me.
From content creator to cold-blooded killer, the TikTok star murder trial, starting Wednesday at 2 on Court TV, Legendary Trials.
With all this in mind, it is your duty to decide this case if you can do so conscientiously. In order to make a decision more attainable, the law always imposes the burden of proof on the Commonwealth to establish every essential element of each indictment beyond a reasonable doubt.
Judge Beverly Cannoni, presiding over the Karen Reed trial, has really become one of the breakout stars of this case because she has such an important role and really has had to make a lot of important legal decisions in terms of evidence coming in, evidence coming out. This case has been heavily litigated by both sides. You've got an attorney from out of state who's leading the defense. You had all that drama with the jury first time around. So there's been a lot on the judge's plate, and you have to, whether you like her decisions or disagree with her decisions, you have to concede that she has controlled that courtroom. She has preserved the decorum in that courtroom and has really kept this case moving along. So let's take a look at some of the moments of Judge Beverly Cannoni.
Judge Cannoni, despite our commitment to the duty entrusted to us, we find ourselves deeply divided by fundamental differences in our opinions and state of mind. We have been unable to reach a unanimous verdict. The motion is denied. The purpose of the view is to help you better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. Dr. Welcher can testify that the data he downloaded and analyzed and the damage to the Lexus is consistent with Ms. Reed's vehicle being in a collision. The law works in a different way, and the difference is crucial to our system of justice.
Fascinating, right? She's making all these decisions, and think about the position she's in. Like, millions of people are watching around the world, number one. They're all critiquing her work, including lawyers from around the world. So that brings us to the next question in our investigation. And it's about the honorable judge. What is it like to be a judge when the world is watching? Does it change things? Is there a level of pressure? What goes through your mind as you are presiding over the biggest case in the country that these days is being watched everywhere? Well, to answer this question, you know where I'm going. Let's bring him in. Retired Chief Judge of Florida's 9th Judicial Circuit. He presided over the Casey Anthony trial. He is America's judge. His new book, you've got to get it, folks, is called The Velvet Hammer, Judge Belvin Perry Jr.'s Capital Murder Cases and Memoir. Yes, it is Judge Belvin Perry. Your Honor, great to see you.
Great being here, Vinny.
Okay, let me ask you the big question. What is it like to be the judge on the case when the world is watching?
Vinny, the best way to describe that is like a conductor of a symphony orchestra. You have various parts. You have the legal parts that you make rulings on instantaneously. That's going to be scrutinized and talked about by commentators, reporters, legal analysts. But you also have to deal with the other moving parts of that symphony. You have to deal with the litigants, the lawyers, the jurors, security, the audience. It's just so many different moving parts that people just think you're only just dealing with the lawyers and listening and making rulings. It's more than that in a high-profile case. And it doesn't end there. Your life changes totally. Once you leave that courtroom, you can't go anywhere. It's just a different world. It's living in a fishbowl.
Do you feel any extra pressure? Because I always look at the judge as, that's who's in charge of all of this.
Vinny, yes, there is extra pressure because the world is watching you. You know that you're going to be critiqued and judged by legal analysts all over the world. So yes, there is pressure, but what you have to do is tune that out and focus in on what your job is during that trial.
Now, the big case before yours was a guy out in California, O.J. Simpson, that trial. And I remember watching late night television. I think it was The Tonight Show had the Dancing Itos, which was Judge Ito. Well, in this case, in the world we live in now, with TikTok and everything else happening on social media, there are a lot of parodies and a lot of people have zeroed in on the judge. Let's take a quick look, and then I want to get your take on how that impacts a judge.
I just have to ask that you don't mutter under your breath like I did, and that you're not making faces, and just be respectful. So when you come into this room, just zip it, shut it.
Even though they had 4 years to decide, I will allow the defense to change their entire timeline. Jurors, you may stand up and stretch. Did you want to object, Brennan?
Cut it short. I couldn't take it when he ever said, what does ANSI stand for? ANSI. Me. I'm ANSI. But did you notice that I got an extra few minutes this morning, so I was able to curl my hair?
All right, Judge, during your trial, social media was there, but we weren't yet in the TikTok age. What are your thoughts about people reacting to the judge?
Well, number one, you're going to have those parodies. You're going to have people second guessing judges, and you're going to actually have people poking fun in the days of this social media. But my advice to any judge is don't watch television. During that Casey Anthony trial, when I was presiding, I did not watch any news accounts, because if you watch them, then you may get caught up in certain things. You may change what you need to do in court. If there's any critiquing, you would probably get that from some of your colleagues who unfortunately will watch and tell you those things. The key word is tune that out.
Judge, you have about 20 seconds. Tell me about your memoir.
My memoir is a story of me growing up in the South, becoming a prosecutor, the cases that I prosecuted, and then the capital cases that I did as a judge, and how my life and my life story impacted and prepared me for those things that I face, dealing with some of the most horrendous murderers in the history of the Ninth Judicial Circuit.
Judge Belvin Perry, it's always my honor to have you on. Thank you so much. All right, covering this trial has been very different. That's because of who is watching and following this case. A lot of people who have never watched a murder trial before are watching this one. And that's a good thing. I mean, a really good thing. And they're asking a lot of questions about the case and about our system of justice. And that, folks, is also a very good thing. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.